about the various issues. I understand that this is, is something. This is a holiday week, and therefore I can see the less number of students appearing for the for the for the class, and therefore what we will do, we'll start discussing as it happens. I expect everyone to watch on the recorded videos. Okay, so let us start our first. We have taken up a lot of issues. So first issue I will be talking about is the last issue that I have covered today. So I'll be talking about the money supply, reserve money, and inflation. Okay, so this is the topic because this is something which requires a sound understanding and the relationship between the money supply, reserve money, and inflation that we will try to understand in this discussion. So what is happening at this point of time, that let's say RBI is continuously uh, RBI is continuously creating new money, and this money is going to the banks. As the banks borrows the money, they borrow the money from the RBI, and as a result, what you see, the RBI, the the monetary policy, and the RBI has adopted a policy of quantitative easing. So what is quantitative easing? It is the policy under which the RBI reduces its monetary policy rate, and as a result, the cost of loan gets reduced, and therefore banks are able to avail more money from RBI. And similarly, the result of it can be seen in the terms of money circulation in the hands of people also, because what happens as a result of that, the cost of loans gets reduced, and therefore more money goes in the hand of public. So this is what happens, or household, if I want to write household, so this is what we understand. Okay, so this is what happens when the RBI adopts the policy of quantitative easing. It reduces the monetary policy rate. So various instruments, monetary policy rate instruments are reduced, and as a result, banks are able to get or banks are availing more money from the RBIs. Okay. Now, what is happening at this point of time, that now RBI is releasing huge amount of money to the banks, but this circulation is not happening, or the amount of money which is released by the banks, here you can see there is a growth of money, because more money has been put into the system by RBI, whereas you don't see the credit growth is very high. So credit creation or credit growth is not happening. So this is what is happening at this point of time. So if it is not happening, where the money is going, that is what we need to understand. And therefore this topic has been chosen, that there is a relationship between the money supply, reserve money, and inflation. So the general understanding so far we have is that when RBI releases more money, into the system by decreasing its policy rate, that more money will come into the hand of banks, and if the more money comes into the hand of banks, the more money comes into the hand of public, maybe be it a farm or be it a household. So the more money will be in the hand of public. This is how it happens. So whenever more money is released in the market, the impact of it can be seen in terms of inflation. Okay, so money supply, if the money supply increases, it results into inflation in the system, that we have understood from our the static syllabus, where monetary policy, under the monetary policy, we have understood that the rate of monetary policy instruments is decreased, more money supply happens in the market, and therefore as a result of it, inflation is bound to increase in the market. All right, inflation means the price rise, because the more money is available with the people, so is chasing the less number of items. So as a result, what you see, the impact of it can be seen in terms of rising the prices of the commodities. Okay, so this is what the relationship we have understood. Now we will try to understand that despite the fact that RBI is releasing huge amount of money and the banks are getting enough amount of money, but then it is still not contributing to the inflation which it could have, because the kind of money that has been issued and by RBI, if you look at the government's estimates, so government is government has already told that it requires 12 lakh crore additional amount of money from the financial system. So you can understand that RBI has to create this much of amount of money into the system, has to liquidate or inject into the system. In that circumstances, what will happen if the money goes from RBI to the banks and from banks to the public? The result of it can be seen in the terms of rising inflation in the economy, and it can negatively impact the economic growth, that you understand. But this is not happening. That's the good thing, that this is still not happening despite the fact that RBI is releasing huge amount of money. So where the money is going to, that is what we will try to understand under this chapter. Okay, and that's why we have chosen the topic of reserve money, money supply, and inflation. You must have covered there are types of money into the system in Indian economy or any system. So types of economy, you must have heard about M1, M2, M3, and M4 concept. We'll try to understand, revisit this concept as always. So what we will try to understand, so this M1 is known as reserve money. This is known as reserve money, whereas M3 is known as, in India, total money supply in the market, total money supply. If you understand the total money supply in the market, it is M3, and when it comes to M1, M1 is considered as the reserve money into the system. So here we will try to understand the relationship between M1, M3, and inflation. If you look at it generally, if you see, when the money supply increases, okay, and if the if reserve money increases, then there will be credit growth in the system, and if the credit growth increases in the economy, that inflation will increase. Okay, so this is what happens. When it comes to the total money supply, so a total money supply is includes all those amount of money which are withdrawn from the public, and that goes into the hand of into the hand of banks. So therefore, it if you look at the total money supply is not growing at par with the reserve money into the systems. That we need to understand here, the difference that we need to understand, and how what will it imply, that we need to understand. So therefore, a bit complicated issue, but I'm trying to make it easy for you, because I expect everyone has gone through the basic syllabus, everyone has gone through the static portion of the syllabus, and even though if you have not understood, you will be able to understand in this classroom. All right, so if I am making this statement, is this statement clear to everyone, that if RBI issues more money to the banks, and banks in turn will provide more money to the public, as a result, what happens? Money supply increases, therefore inflation will increase. So is this relationship clear to everyone? Because now this relationship we understand, this is a part of the basic syllabus or static portion of the syllabus. So if you have understood this relationship, then I will try to bring more complexity in this particular chart or flow chart. Okay, Jaswant Sivasai. Okay, all right. So what I'm telling Jaswant, I expected you to join at 6 o'clock, but you are very late. Anyway, so let us try to understand it again. Okay, what happens when RBI provides more money to the banks? The banks will have more money in their hand. If the banks will have more money in their hand, they will reduce the interest rate, because they have to sell their loans to the public. So they will reduce the interest rate, and once the interest rate is low, look at today. If you get something at a lesser cost, will you buy that goods or not? For example, you go to a mall and you see the cost of, let's say, shirt, okay, The cost of such, which used to be when you were visiting earlier, so the cost of such was 110 rupees, but now it has gone down to 100 rupees. Would you like to buy it or not? Compared to previous situation when it was the price was very high, so your willingness to buy was less. Whereas now, when you see the price has slashed or price has reduced, in that circumstances, will you buy that good or not? Just tell me. This is where I want everyone to participate. So I'm asking a question from Jaswant. Tell me, if you get something at a lesser cost, will you buy that good or not? Jaswant, this is the question from you. Of course, you will buy. Okay, because whenever you see the cost gets reduced, you will buy before it gets before the price gets higher. All right. So what will happen? The people will buy more loans from the banks. So if people buy more loans from the banks, more number of people will buy loans from the banks. As a result, money supply, more money will come. Let's say you buy loan, then what happens? Money comes into your hand, so more money will come into the hand of public. All right. So if more money comes into the hand of public, then what happens? If you want to buy something, your willingness to buy increases. Why? You want to pay amount. Okay. So what will happen? If let's say more money comes into your hand, just look at let's say there is a one movie that has been released yesterday, is known as Surivansam. Okay, let's say you go to a cinema hall. Okay, there is a crisis, you understand, and there is a restriction. Let's say you don't get ticket, and this is the beginning of the month, and because you see there is a, of course, Diwali, and of course you must be getting you must have a lot of money. And let's say if you have money and you get the ticket at a higher price, what will happen? You would be willing to pay the price for that ticket, because you understand that half of the seats are you will not be you will not get seat for the half of the seats, so largely because of the restriction. So only 50% capacity is there. And if the cost has been increased by the PVR, will you pay that amount or not? Because you have money, so you would pay that amount of money for that movie. Okay, so instead, earlier, let's say you were paying 100 rupees, but now if the price has increased to 200 rupees, and let's say somehow the more money is in your pocket, so you would be willing to pay more money. Okay, so what is happening? The same goods or same services, okay, is attracting more price now. This is the increase in the price of the commodities and services is known as inflation. Am I making sense to you, Jaswant? So this flowchart is clear to everyone, that if RBI releases more money by decreasing its policy instrument, okay, decreasing the rate of its policy instrument, then more money will come into the hands of banks. And if the more money comes into the hand of banks, they will provide loans at a cheaper rate. So therefore, more public will buy, more people will buy the loans. And if they buy the loans, more money come into the hands of people, whereas uh, the goods produced in the economy is not very high. As a result, more people will be willing to pay price for. Yes, you have understood. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to make you understand. The price will increase. All right, so this is what we have understood. Now this is the normal relationship that we generally see. But here what has happened, that talk about it right. Okay, we'll not talk about this that part. Let us concentrate here. Okay, let us concentrate. Okay, we will be discussing within this condition. Okay, don't go beyond this much, because otherwise you will not be able to understand the issue. So there is a limitation. I'm not going to divert the attention on various other issues. Okay, let us first concentrate to understand what is happening at this point of time. This is the general relationship that usually happens. Now what is happening at this point of time, that RBI is releasing more money to the banks, but from here to here, what we have seen that if more money comes into the hand of banks, the banks provide more money, that is known as more money to the public. Okay, so that is the credit growth. So the credit growth will increase because the the banks will provide more money to the people. So therefore, credit growth, more number of buyers, loan buyers will be there. So there will be credit growth into the system. When there is a credit growth and the inflation occurs in the economy, this is what happens. But what is happening, despite so much money released by the RBI, the credit growth is not taking or is not matching to the standard to which RBI is releasing money into the market. It means the credit growth has not got momentum into the system, and despite what is happening, that the money and once the credit growth has not increased in the economy, as a result, inflation has also been not increased beyond a controllable situation in the country. All right. So see, the inflation is in the range of 6 to 7%. Hardly the range of inflation has gone up beyond 6 to 7%. So we are in a situation to manage our inflation. Okay. So we just try to understand what has happened. Okay, what are the issues that you can see that has occurred, because of which the credit, despite the banks having a lot of money, the credit growth has not taken momentum and the inflation has not increased beyond a point. Okay, the normal relationship, this is the normal relationship that happens. But today, the government is able, or RBI is able to manage the inflation in such a great way, okay, that despite releasing a lot of money by it, the inflation is not increasing. So we will try to understand what are the factors that has come into play and what are the factors that has contributed to diverting the money to the money from the banks. Okay, now this is the relationship that we will try to understand. So far so good. I expect everyone with me. Okay, are you guys with me till now? Is it all right to everyone? So if you are with me, then I will explain. Okay, next part. All right, good, good. Now what has happened? When RBI publishes new currency, okay, when RBI publishes new currency, it provides more liquidity, injects more liquidity into the system, and that system, okay, it injects more liquidity, it provides more money to the banks. Now banks has various options. Banks provide money, okay, provides loans to the household. We all are part of the household. Banks can provide money to the government. Okay, it has to sell the loans. It can sell loans to the government, it can sell loans to the household. It can also provide money to the let's say firms, companies. It also lend money to the firms, okay, companies. And there's another option for the banks is to deposit its money with RBI. Okay, so usually banks have four options. Whenever banks receive money from RBI, it has a four option. Okay, it can give loans to the household, it can give loans to the government, it can give loans to the firms, and it can deposit its surplus money with the RBI. It has a different instruments. Now if it gives money to these, okay, to the household and the firms, so more money it gives to the household and firms, the rate of interest usually is very high. The rate of interest is usually very high. And as a result, what happens? Credit growth. This is known as a credit growth. Credit growth happens in the economy, and more money, let's say, comes into the hand of household and farms. They do what? They do expenditure. And once they do expenditure, more money comes into the system. Money supply increases into the system, And if it happens, the inflation increases in the economy. All right, this is what happens. So these are the source through which the inflation increases in the economy. Okay, now what has happened into the system, that the RBI is, RBI has reduced the rate of various policy instrument, whether it is the repo rate, whether it is a bank rate, okay, or any other rate. The monetary policy instrument rate has decreased. As a result, banks are flushed with the funds. Now, what is happening? The banks are not providing enough money to the household. Money is not going to the household, neither it is going to the firms. I'm saying to the amount, okay, the at par with the amount it is receiving from the banks. Rather, what the banks are doing, banks are buying, okay, banks are buying government securities, government securities. That may be the treasury securities, treasury bills, that may be the gilt aged securities. Okay, so the banks are buying more government securities, and it is selling these government securities to RBI. All right, now what is happening? The banks are flushed with a lot of money. Okay, what it does, it is providing money to the government. Okay, now once it provides money to the government, and the government is and then the banks, the banks are selling these bonds to RBI. As a result, it is able to earn sufficient in this process. That is one. Second thing is that it is helping. Now government is doing what? The government is taking more and more money from the banks. As it has suggested, it will raise 12 lakh additional 12 lakh crore additional money from the banks. Okay, so the government is having a lot of money. Now what the government is doing, now government has not increased its government has not gone for spending this money in the welfare program only. Rather, what the government is doing, it is investing in capital instrument or creating capital assets. Okay, so it has increased the size of the capital budget. It has increased the size of capital budget. Now what is happening, since the government is investing in the capital budget, so what is happening, the goods are being created into the system. Now the more number of goods are being created into the system, at the same time money is released into the system. Now what is happening at this point of time, so when the inflation increases, what would be inflationary nature? When you increase the money supply and there is no the same amount of goods and services are if not created into the system, that will create inflation in the economy. But if you are using that money, or if you are supplying that money by creating some assets or goods and services in the country, what happens, that you are creating enough number of goods and services into the system. As a result, you are releasing the money. So therefore it is not inflationary in nature. Okay, yeah, of course it will create, because more money comes into the system, then the inflation will increase, but this will not be as inflationary as you can see in these cases, especially when the money goes into the hand of household and they are using this money in order to go for uh, you know, its consumption expenditure. So if they are engaged in consumption expenditure, then it will create inflation into the system. Similarly, if the government is using the money for providing subsidies and other welfare measures to the people, in that circumstances, you can expect that inflation will increase in the economy. But what the government has done, government is taking more amount of money from the banks, okay, and diverting this money to, so money from which is created by RBI is being diverted to the government, and then government is diverting this money to create additional assets into the system. So therefore it doesn't create inflation into the system. All right, this is the reason why we don't see, despite that RBI releases a lot of amount of money into the system, injecting a lot of amount of money into the system, yet inflation, especially the CPI inflation, has not increased beyond a manageable level. Okay, so therefore it is able to meet, RBI is able to meet its inflation targeting. Okay, you need to understand. Let me give you brief description about the inflation targeting. So inflation targeting is what? RBI needs to manage inflation within the range of 4 plus minus 2. So there is a band that has been created that RBI needs to manage, and this is a legal requirement. This is a statutory requirement for RBI to maintain. Okay, and this has been done by amending the RBI Act 1934. So therefore, RBI has a single most objective is to maintain the inflation within the range of 4 plus minus 2. And this is known as inflation targeting. So what does it mean? That inflation should remain within the range of 2 to 6%. And RBI is able to manage this inflation in the range of 2 to 6% despite releasing more amount of money into the system. Now, what we have defined earlier, we said if RBI releases more money into the system, inflation will increase. But what is happening in reality, that RBI releases the money into the system, yet it doesn't create more inflation in the economy. This is how the relationship is there. Okay. Now, so here the concept is, this is what happens in general or layman terms. If you try to understand, this is what is happening. Okay, so you must have heard about, there is a program that is known as GSAFE. If you have not heard about it, please go back in one of the videos. I've already talked about it. Okay, and that is available freely on YouTube. Please watch that video and you will see there is a program that has been initiated by RBI, and that is known as GSAFE, Government Securities Acquisition Program, under which RBI acquires more number of government securities, and the same kind of things that has been done in US and other countries as well. So what do you see here, and that is what the demand of this chapter. Okay, so you understood this background. Is it clear to everyone? Now, if everybody has understood till this level, then I will move on to the next. Okay, so it's step by step, I will move on. Okay, are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? Everyone has to take participation in the discussion. So if you have understood, please say yes. Okay, Jaswant, I just want to understand your level of have you gone through the static portion of the syllabus? Please answer speedily. If you have not, then I'll go into a bit detail of this one. And if you have gone through, then I will have a different approach. Okay, if you have not gone through the static portion, then I'll have a different approach. Okay, good. So at what level you are? I mean, you have just started your preparation, or you have understood, you have at least done something? Just give me a brief idea about you or whether you have invested sufficient amount of time in the program. Okay, just started. Great, you have a degree in economics. Great. Then in that case, are you able to understand? It is a financial system. I can understand this is a financial system. I believe you might not have covered this, but some part you will definitely be understand. Okay, anyway, now let's move on. At what level you have not understood, just one, because I believe since you have economics background, so I believe you must have some or basic understanding of. So can you please identify at what level you have a problem so that I can start from there? Apart from just ones? Okay. After inflation. Inflation is where, okay, this, okay. So you have not understood this one. Okay. So what I'm saying that RBI, once the RBI is releasing more money to the banks, as I said to you, banks have many options. Okay, banks has one option to Banks have one option to give money to the household. It has option to give money to the farms. It has option to give money to the government. It has another options to give or deposit its surplus money with RBI. Okay. Now, what is happening when the government has reduced? Now it is not giving those money to household. Okay, so the money it is receiving from RBI, but it is not releasing those money, okay, to the household and farms at par with the money that it has got with RBI. So this is known, if it provides money to the household and farms, it is known as credit growth. Means what? The demand for the loans. Okay, it is known as credit growth. So what is happening? Despite the rate of interest is very low, yet the credit growth has not got momentum. Yes, of course, when you deposit money. Okay, what is your name? Just one. When you deposit money with bank, do you get something in return? What is the thing that you get return? Tell me. It is something you get interest. Okay, interest. Okay. Similarly, if the banks deposit its surplus money with RBI, RBI will also give interest to them. Okay, and that is known as reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate. Okay, so when RBI gives money to the banks, okay, that is known as repo rate. When banks deposit its surplus money with RBI, it is known as reverse repo rate. All right. So because RBI can give them return. Okay, that is also because banks will prefer in any day. Banks will prefer to deposit its money with RBI rather than giving it to the household. Okay, it can happen. Why? Because RBI is something which will give them return for sure. It is an institution of the sovereign. Okay, so therefore it will give you the money, whereas the household may not necessarily. It may, if it provides money to the household, that may convert into NPA, so therefore it may not necessarily give money to the household. Got that point? Yes, it is easily pivoted. Very good. So this is what we have understood. Got that point? Now, what is happening? The banks are diverting this money to the government. Okay, banks are diverting this money to the government in lieu of government securities. Now, government is taking more amount of money. Once government is taking more amount of loan, it releases what? The government securities. So it has to release the government securities. So what is happening? By releasing the government securities, the government is taking more loan from the banks. Now, these securities are hugely demanded by RBI because RBI is ready to purchase these bonds. So there is a huge demand for the government bonds in the market, and especially these demands are being created by RBI. So RBI purchases these bonds from the banks. So banks are able to get or able to the government securities is something you understand. It's a bond. Okay, it's a bond. Okay, bond, or you can say collateral. When you go to the banks, okay, when you go to the banks, so banks will provide you something. You will have to deposit. You go to the banks, and if you want money from the banks, let's say you want loans from the banks, what are the instrument, or what are the things that you need to deposit with the banks? You need to deposit collaterals with the banks. Got that point? So that collateral is what? It gives security to the banks that, look, if you are not able to repay my loans, then in that case it is a security before me. Okay, so that is what you can see here also. When the government takes loans from the banks, so the government needs to give some securities to the banks. So these government bonds and securities, bills and notes are considered as government securities, because government, it is a collateral which is given by the government, and the collateral is in the form of paper. Okay, so in lieu of the money, it releases the government securities. Absolutely. You are able to understand this one. Good. So bond, you have rightly understood the bond. Good. Am I making clear to you? Just one, is it clear to you? So you understand the securities? No, why do you enter into Harshad Mehta scam? Okay, let us not divert here and there. Okay, you are going, I understand. Okay, anyway, so let us focus here only. Okay, let us focus here. Now what is happening here, that the government, once the government is getting money, okay, now government, once the government is receiving money from the banks, it is not able to release it to the household and farms, and in this process banks are able to get able to earn the money. All right, now what is happening, that government is, once the money reaches to government, it can also lead to inflation, because once the money releases to the government will have to do expenditures. So once the expenditure is happened, in that case it may release, the money will be released in the market, so therefore the inflation will increase. Okay, that is happening. Now government has two kind of, now the when the government is doing its expenditure, it has a two kinds of expenditure. One is the revenue expenditure, and second is capital expenditure. So what the government is doing right now, instead of revenue expenditure in terms of subsidies, payments, salaries, and so many things are the part of revenue expenditure. So what the government has done, rather than revenue expenditure, it has focused on creation of capital assets, or it has focused on capital expenditure. When it is focused on capital expenditure, it is creating capital. Okay, it is creating capital, or once it is creating capital, it means it is creating goods and services into the system. Once it creates goods and services into the system, means what, the money is able to create enough number of goods and services. All right, so it is able to create more. Let's say if I am using the money, there is 100 rupees, and if I am able to I'm utilize this money for creation of assets. Let's say I have made 100 goods. In that case, the inflation will not increase. But if I am using this money for luxurious purpose, I am not, let's say I am having 100 rupees money, but I am not able to create enough number of goods to match with this extra money. In that circumstances, the more money will be chasing the less number of goods, and then therefore inflation increases in the economy. So here, when the capital assets are being created, the goods are being created into the system. So therefore, the money is released and equivalent amount of goods are being created into the system. So therefore, it is not that inflationary in nature. If the government would have gone for revenue expenditure, in that case, it would have been inflationary in nature. Similarly, these are inflationary in nature, especially the household, if it is not using in the housing, apart from the housing. So this can create inflation, this can create inflation. But what is happening, that extra money which is created by RBI is being used for the creation of capital assets, and therefore there is no inflation, or not huge inflation is increasing in the economy. All right, so this is the relationship that you can understand. Okay, now in the context of the things that I have already set up, just try to understand that what this article is basically talking about. Okay, so basic crux of this article is this: the relationship is like this. Okay, now what has happened, if you look at role of money supply in inflation, I've already made you understand that if the money supply increases, inflation will increase. That is the general relationship we have already discussed. We have discussed this one, understand this one, we have discussed this one, and now we are trying to see what it is written in this article. Okay, in the context of our discussion. Now, role of money supply. So once the money supply increases, inflation will increase. Okay, But money supply reflects the different types of liquidity. Okay. Now, here when it comes to the money supply, there are various concepts that are being used by RBI to show its money supply. Okay. Now, when it comes to M1, M2, M3, and M4, there are four types of money supply. Now, in India, this is considered as total money supply into the system. Total money supply into the system. Okay, if I say total money supply into the system, so this is what it is referred in. Okay, so in India, M3 is regarded as total money supply into the system, whereas M1, okay, is regarded, this is known as reserve money. It is known as reserve money or base money. This is known as reserve money and base money. Now, the relationship what we have seen and why it is not creating inflation is largely because there is a difference between M1 and M3, and there is a growth of M1. There is a huge growth of M1. Means what? When the money is coming from RBI to the banks, this is increasing. So M1 is increasing, but M3, that is the total money supply, okay, the broad money, which is also known as broad money, it is not increasing at par with the reserve money. And the difference is largely because of the various factors. Okay, and this is the reason that that is why we don't see the inflation is rising in the is not rising into the system. Now, we need to understand these two terms first. Okay, just try to understand these two terms. So what do you understand by M1, that is known as reserve money, and what do you understand by the broad money? What are the extra things that you can see in the broad money? So you see the broad money means M1 plus time deposit with the banks. Okay, now time deposit with the banks means what? The deposit towards the bank. Okay, so M1 includes what? Currency in circulation, demand deposit, and other deposits of RBI. Now let us just try to understand this concept here. Okay, so reserve money means currency in circulation, bankers deposit with RBI. Okay, so bank also makes deposit with RBI, as I said, that is also, and other deposits with RBI. That is considered as M1. Now, when it comes to M3, M3 includes M1 plus the one thing that is known as long-term deposits or time deposits with them. Okay, long-term time deposits with the bank, time deposits. So what does it mean? If M1 is increasing, but M3 is not increasing. Okay, what does it show? It shows that if M1 is increasing and M3 is not increasing at par with that, it means the time deposit with bank is not increasing into the system. Okay, because this is the only difference that is between the M1 and M3. So if the formula of M1 is currency circulation, bankers deposit with RBI, others deposit with RBI. And here the currency in circulation, bankers deposit with RBI, others deposit with RBI, plus time deposit with the banks. Now, time deposit or tenor deposit, whatever you call. So it means that during the pandemic, what has happened that the time deposit with the banks has in fact gone down. Means what? That FD, okay, the FD, okay, the fixed deposit which we do with the banks, that has not increased in the economy. Why it has not increased? Now just try to understand in the today's context. Okay, if you are looking at It's M2 according to me, according to M3 point. I'm not able to understand. Jaswant, can you please repeat? Okay. Now, no, I have just told you the time deposit. Just try to understand here. M2 includes both M1 plus short-term deposit and long-term deposit. Here I've written only time deposit. I have not diversified long-term and short-term. You got that point? I've just written time deposits. M1 includes, okay, here M2 plus time deposit. Let's go back here. Here it is written M1 plus time deposit with the bank. I've already discussed this with you. There is a time deposit with the bank. Okay. Here you just need to understand that it is written short-term time deposit, long-term deposits. All right. I'm just trying to make you difference between M1 and M3. And here I have written only time deposit. I have not written that long-term and short-term. Got that point? So M3 is M1 plus time deposit. So what I was telling you that the rate of, okay, so what I'm trying to make you that the fixed deposit has not increased in the economy. Means what? The banks are not receiving fixed deposit. Okay, it has not increased. Now look at the what it the currently, if you look at the rate of fixed deposit, that has gone down to 6 to 6.5%. Because if the, let's say, if a bank, okay, if a bank gives you a loan, let's say you are XYZ, if a banks give you a loan with an interest rate of 6%, let's say earlier 10%, then it has ability, it will receive at 10%. So therefore it has ability to make payment to you on your interest. It might pay you 6% for that, because it is charging high interest rate. So therefore it can give you high interest rate against your FD as well. But if it is giving you loan at a 8%, then it has ability to give you a return against your fixed deposit will also come down to less than 6%. Okay, and the difference between these two is known as a spread. We call it as a spread. Means what? When I say that if the interest rate is lower, then interest rate against fixed deposit will also be lower. Why? Because if it provides you, okay, if the banks are providing loans at a 10%, let's say bank has 100 rupees, it is giving you 110 rupee, the banks is giving you 100 rupees, and it gets what? Return 110 rupees. Now you have simultaneously deposit, let's say 100 rupees with the bank, and if banks are willing to provide you 11%, so banks will give you return of 111 rupees. So will it be possible for a bank to survive? No. Why? Because there is a -1 rupees for the banks in that circumstance. So therefore, the interest rate, if the interest rate decreases against the loan, that means the interest rate against your saving and deposit or your time deposit will also come down in the economy. You understand this one? So is it clear to everyone? If the loan interest rate gets decreased, yes, in a way you can say that if that decreases, it will also decrease. Absolutely. So this is what happens. Now, if you look at today, now I started with that the currently the RBI is following the policy of quantitative easing. Means what? The RBI is following the policy of its instrument. The rate of its various policy instrument has come down. As a result, bank has also reduced its interest rate. So if the bank has reduced its interest rate, in that case, the bank will also give you return less. The fixed deposit rate is very low at this point of time, when the fixed deposit rate is very low at this point of time, means it means that the XYZ will not go to the banks to deposit its money with with the bank. This is the reason why you see that M1 is increasing, but M3 is not increasing at par with M1. Okay, so this is where the difference is, that reserve money is increasing, currency in circulation is increasing, bankers deposit with RBI increasing, others deposit with RBI is increasing, but the people's long-term time deposit with the banks is not increasing. Rather, what the people are doing with their money is that they are either making expenditure or they are making investment in home or any other things. Okay, so that is what the reason, that is why you see the difference between the reserve money and M3, or you can see broad money. All right, and this is the reason why you see that inflation is not increasing in the economy. All right, so now if we try to understand this difference, so it has been stated that difference is largely because of the lower credit expansion and greater currency withdrawal. Okay, so the broad money, when it comes to the broad money, so deposit is continuously going down because people are continuously, they're withdrawing money, they are, they are making their fixed deposit and somehow they could survive. So what do you see, that currency withdrawal has increased in the economy, and the at the same time the credit expansion by the banks has not increased, rather the money has gone to where, the money has gone to the government. This is the reason why you see that the reserve money has increased, but the money supply or the broad money has not increased. Now look at the data here. The growth, year on year growth of reserve money is 18.8%. Okay, 18.8% in the year 2021, whereas the broad money growth of broad money is merely 12.2%. And why it is? Because higher currency withdrawal and lower credit expansion. The money is not reaching to the people and money is being withdrawn by the people. Term deposit, time deposit is being withdrawn by the people. Okay, and this is the reason why you see, and look at the inflation. Now look at the earlier trend. What used to happen? Now, if the reserve money is increasing by 3.6%, the broad money used to increase by 13.5%. Why? Because people used to deposit more money with RBI, okay, with the banks. So here you see the relationship. You see all what is happening most of the time. If the reserve money is increasing, the broad money is increasing at more fastly than the reserve money. This is the relationship most of the time we have seen. Okay, everywhere you will see that kind of trend, but since 2017-18, you can see there is a difference, especially in 2021. You can see the different kind of things are happening. All right, why it is happening? Because now the public, they the time deposits they have made, now they are taking money and withdrawing their time deposits from the banks and utilizing for their own purposes to meet their own requirement. Okay, so this is what we have understood. Okay, so this is the relationship between the reserve money and the broad money. Is it clear to everyone? That reserve money is increasing, but the broad money is not increasing at par with the reserve money. So two problem, that credit growth is not happening and the currency withdrawal is happening. Are you guys with me? Yes, I want answer from everyone. If you have understood, please say yes. If you not, please raise your doubt. I want everyone's participation. Dinesh, what about you? Uttam, Vaibhav, Pooja. I want answer from everyone. If you have not understood, please raise your. Uh,
Sir,
Jaswant,
it's first class. That's why a little bit I understand.
Jaswant, it is Jaswant who is speaking. It is Jaswant.
No, sir, Vaibhav.
Okay, all right. So please raise your doubt. I understand. I appreciate that if you raise your doubt because somebody is raising. For example, Jaswant has raised CPI inflation. CPI means Consumer Price Index. So remember one thing is one way to understand the inflation. Okay, it's how we measure the inflation. Okay, CPI inflation means what? Consumer Price Index. Okay, so there are many indexes which are used in order to measure the inflation. But here, what we are talking about, especially RBI, when it comes to the measuring inflation, it uses the CPI inflation. All right. So this is what we have understood. Wherever, if you have doubt at what place, you can please raise your doubt, and simply you can at the first phase, if you are able to understand this much, then it's okay with you. Okay, I understand that you will not be able to understand everything that I have discussed, but you will be able to, if you are able to understand this one, this relationship, and if you are able to understand this relationship, that's okay with you. Okay, got that point? And then if you are more interested to go deeper into the issue, then here we have talked about different, we have gone further detail into the issues. Okay, so this is the money supply. You understood? Now if
Yes.
you guys have understood, okay, if you have understood now what we need to focus on, what should be the way forward. Now what will happen, now telling you what are the policies that will be followed of in the next 6 months. Okay, now what is happening, that RBI provides money to the banks. All right, this is happening, this is the relationship that we have seen. Now if the money is increasing is going to in the hands of banks. Now the banks are providing this money banks are providing this money to the government. Now the government has slowly government is has reduced its security transaction, it has slowed down. Now what will happen, that after in the next 6 months, you will see the banks will start its credit growth. Okay, it will provide more money to the to the household and to the farms. Once it provides more money to the household and farms, only then you will see that the credit growth will increase into the system. And if the credit growth gets increased, then you will see the demand will increase in the market. Okay, so if the demand gets increased in the market, you will see the supply side is already moving with the various policies, the demand will also increase into the system, and therefore economic growth will sustain in the long future. Okay, so this is what this article is talking about, that look, we are able to control our inflation largely because the money has been diverted to the government, and government has diverted it for to meet the requirement of what the to meet the requirement of the capital goods. Now, what will happen? Even the money reaches to the government, or the banks will release more money for the household and farms. This is the reason why do you see that currently, if you have seen in the last week, that government has increased, and government is releasing the the dearness allowances for the for the government servant. Why? Because it is releasing more amount of money in the hands of people, and if the more amount of money will remain in the hand of people, then they will create more demand in the economy. So next target for the government and RBI will be to increase the demand into the system. How the demand will be increased? The demand will be increased by providing more loans or by creating more credit growth to the household and farms. And on the other hand, the government will also release more funds wherever it is required, more funds in terms of revenue expenditure. So revenue expenditure will increase, the credit growth will increase. Together, this will create more demand in the economy, and therefore you can see the economic growth will sustain. Okay, so this is what this article is talking about. And in the future, in the next 6 months, you will see more number of policies being adopted by the government in order to increase the more money in the hand of people. And similarly, the banks will also provide more credit to the people. Okay, so this is what we need to understand. So what do we understand, what we have understood? Now what has happened in 2009? Okay, the similar kind of things were done, but it was not able to create difference between the, just look at the data, and the data will tell you that, look at this year. In 2011-12, the reserve money was increasing at 3.6%, whereas the broad money was increasing at 13.5%. And this is the reason that inflation was increasing. Okay, now if you look at today, that reserve money is increasing at a faster pace, but then broad money is not increasing. This is the reason it is able to manage inflation within the range of 6.2%. At this level, the inflation was more than 9%, 10%. It was in double digit during that period of time. Now here you see it is within the range of inflation targeting, that is in the range of 6%, 6 plus 6.2%. This is the stark difference between the policies that were adopted in 2011-12 when the inflation was very high, and this is the kind of policies that we are adopting now. And the difference you can see in terms of its impact on inflation and its impact on economic growth also. So that is what it is suggesting, that now the government has already done with the credit growth, and the money has been provided into the system. Liquidity, enough amount of liquidity has been put into the system. Now it's a time for the government to, and it is able to manage inflation. So it's time the government, releases its own fund to the people. Okay, and they are able to sustain the economic growth. Okay, this is how it has been faced and it has been designed. So in the next 6 months, these are the policies that you will see. Got that point? So this is the first topic. I expected, I started with discussion largely because of the fact I feel this is the most important, and here you require a lot of understanding. Okay, so this is something that you go beyond your static portion of the syllabus, and you can add value to your static portion of the syllabus. All right, so this is about the first topic. Now let's move on to the rather easy topics, which will help you to, that won't be very difficult for you. All right. No, just one. This is not the first class. Okay. The current affair class is a regular class. It keeps on going every week. Okay. But here, what we do, we add some. We add. This is not an economy class, just one. It is a current affairs class. All right. It is a current affairs class. It is not economy class. Economy is the topic that we have covered. One of the topic, this is related to the economy. That's why we got. So what we will do, we will try to find out any topic. Okay, there is any topic, we go into the detail of that topic, whether it is economy, polity, or any other subject. Okay, so the current affairs topics will be taken, and then we go into the length of those topics. So therefore it is not everything we can include as part of the discussion. There is a limitation with this. I cannot explain right from the beginning, because I expect everyone to do something do some preparation. If you would have done the classroom program, you would have greatly you have understood everything that I have already talked in the later phase also, because there I already explained M1, M3, M2, M3, M4, and I also explained the monetary policy instrument and the various instruments we use. Okay. The more flow of money in people's hand can be the reason for price hike for daily needs thing. Absolutely, Weber, you are absolutely right. Okay, so if the more money goes into the hand of people, it will increase the price of commodity, and that is what it is happening. Okay, now it is saying it has not increased if the entire money has gone into the hand of the people. In that case, inflation would have gone beyond the manageable situation. Okay, and that is the crux of this article, that the money has not gone, no, the amount of money which has been created by RBI has not gone to into the hand of people, rather it has been diverted to somewhere for different purposes. This is the reason why we are able to contain inflation or manage inflation within the range of 6.2%. Okay, now in 2011-12, what happened, this is happened that RBI released the money, it prints the extra money, and then the money goes into the hand of people, and therefore inflation increases into the system. Okay, but this time what has happened, the money is being released by RBI, but then it is not creating inflation to the system. This is what you can see, that the difference between the earlier policy and difference between today's policy. And this is the reason RBI was very successful in managing and dealing with the current scenario in a better way than it was done in 2011-12. And largely because of that, we lost one decade. Okay, so now it has been managed in a better way than it was done earlier. All right, that is what the crux of this article is. Okay, now let us move on to the next topic, rather easy topic. Okay, so let us start with the first. Okay, now these are information based. Okay, now the things have, there is a development, and with the development, that kind of things we need to add up with our static portion of syllabus. All right, so there is one news. Okay, current affairs, purely current affairs issue, and that is known as ESG Fund. ESG Fund. ESG Fund. Okay, so there is a new fund that has been created, and SEBI has created one new fund. That is, SEBI has agreed to create a new fund that is known as ESG Fund. Now, ESG Fund, E for environment, S for sustainability, G for governance. Okay, so this is a fund that has been created. Now let us try to understand what this means and what are the news with related to this. So as I said, SEBI. SEBI is what? Securities and Exchange Board of India. SEBI stands for Securities and Exchange Board of India. Okay. Now SEBI is what? It is a regulatory agency. It regulates the capital market. It regulates the capital market. Okay, capital market means market where the long-term borrowing, lending and borrowing happens. For example, Bombay Stock Exchange. Okay, so it manages, SEBI regulates what? The capital market. Similarly, RBI, as the RBI regulates the money market, SEBI regulates the capital market or Bombay Stock Exchange or a stock exchange. Okay, so that is one agency. So what the SEBI has done, SEBI has come out with a new paper, that is consultation paper. It is related to the ECG mutual fund schemes. So there is a one mutual fund scheme that is being created, and it is named as ESG, that is environment, sustainability and governance, as I said. So it has issued and it has come out with a consultation paper where it has talked about the disclosure norms for ESG. Okay, ESG mutual fund. So now ESG is what? It is a type of mutual fund. Okay, it is a type of mutual fund. Mutual fund has a various types. Okay, So mutual fund, it is ESG is basically a mutual fund. Now, what is a mutual fund? It is a fund which is created by collecting the money from the retail investors. It is a fund created by collecting the money by the retail investors like you, me, and everyone. If we don't want to invest directly into the bonds, directly into the Bombay Stock Exchange, what we can do, we can go to the mutual fund, and mutual fund on behalf of us will invest in the Bombay Stock Exchange or stock market, and if they get the return, they will distribute this return with the retail investors. Okay, so retail investors might not have sufficient knowledge about the market, doesn't know how the market reacts and so on, and it has no specialization on that. So therefore we, okay, we individual, we are retail investors, so we do go to the mutual fund agencies and we deposit our savings so that we can get the return, and in return that mutual fund makes it investment in the Bombay Stock Exchange or any other stock in the market. Okay, that is a mutual fund. You understood what is mutual fund? Is it clear to everyone what is mutual fund? What is mutual fund? It is a fund. Okay, it is a fund which is created by pooling the resources from the retail investors. Retail investors. Pooling the resources from the retail investors. How many of you are clear with the mutual fund? If you are clear with the mutual fund, please say yes.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you need to write. You don't need to necessarily speak. You just write. Okay. Just write. Okay. So if it is clear, please say yes. I want answer from everyone. Everyone has to answer. Okay. Now, this is a mutual fund. You understood this is a mutual. Now, what is saying that ESG, there is a environment, sustainability, and governance mutual fund. So there is a one type of mutual fund that has been suggested, that SEBI is suggesting that there is a one kind of mutual fund that can be created by the companies or asset management companies, that is known as ESG. Okay. Now, environment, sustainability, and governance. You understood? So there is a ESG is basically ESG fund is basically a type of mutual fund, and mutual fund I've already explained to you. Okay. Now, what the ESG fund will do? Now, the people who are interested, so ESG fund will pool the resources from the people. Okay, it will pool the resources from the people who are willing to make investment in those companies which are environment, which are not creating pollution, which are rather promoting environment, which are promoting sustainability, and which are enhancing the governance system. So this fund will pool the resources from the retail investors, and they will make investment in companies. They will make investment in companies. Now, what kind of, they will make investment in what kind of companies? Companies which are engaged in promoting environment, promoting sustainability and governance. In only those companies, these funds will make investment. Got that point? So what is ESG fund? ESG fund is a fund which are created by pooling the resources from the various retail investors, and in turn makes investment in the companies which are promoting environment, sustainability, and governance in the country. Got that point? Now, what are those companies? Those companies, like, say, okay, now just try to understand the dynamics. Now, what are those companies? These companies will be generally what? Those companies which are engaged in creating sustainable resources, which are engaged in creating renewable resources in the country. Okay. For example, if somebody is greening, somebody is, solar technology, developing solar technology. If somebody is creating solar power, wind power, geothermal power, or any other environment friendly company. Okay, if a company is saving huge amount of let's say huge amount of power, so this ESG fund is will make necessarily, okay, there is a one condition that this fund will be invested in those companies which will be promoting environment, sustainability, and governance. Now just try to understand in the context of today's world. Now we are moving towards green technology, whether it is hydrogen technology or any other technology. We are moving towards climate change. We are more we are more vocal about the climate change. So therefore, there is a huge there is a huge you can say there is a huge emphasis on creating more green technology. As you see, Mr. Prime Minister has also talked about that by 2070 India will become zero emission. Okay, so we will be able to achieve zero emission by the year 2070. This has been emphasized by Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister has also emphasized a lot on creating a lot of green technology in the country, promoting a lot of green technologies in the country. So future belongs to what? The future belongs to the green technology. Okay, so there will be a lot of companies that will be making investment in green technology. For example, Reliance has created a new economy, that is Reliance Renewable Energy or Reliance Green Technology Company. Similarly, Adani has also moved in Adani Green. There is a green technology. So these companies are moving towards green technology because the future belongs to the green technology. Future belongs to the technology which can which can stop the climate change. Okay, so and especially once the Biden administration has come into power, and the focus has been more on green technology. Now there are many companies that will come in green technology. Now remember, these are technological companies as well. So the future growth is related to the green technology. So these technology will see huge growth in the future in the next 20 to 50 years. So what the ESG fund will create, it is something that has been visualized in order to meet the current requirement of market. So in these broader context of the ESG fund has been, there has been there a consultation paper has been released by SEBI regarding the ESG fund mutual fund schemes. You understood this point? The background, what are the positive, what are the benefits the ESG mutual fund scheme, launching of ESG mutual fund scheme can have on Indian economy. Okay, so this will greatly fund the green technologies companies, and the companies which are engaged in renewable energy production, renewable energy, they will be able to, and they will have access to fund. So it's a huge positive for those companies which are engaged in renewable energy production. All right. So in this broader context, let us try to understand what the scheme is talking about, what the fund is basically talking about. So it is something which is thematic mutual fund. Thematic mutual fund means it is devoted to particular themes. So here the theme is environment, sustainability, and governance. Okay. So ESG mutual fund are thematic mutual funds. These will be and they will make investment in socially responsible companies. As I said to you, they will make investment in what? The green technology companies. These are socially responsible companies. Why? Because they will not creating pollution to the system. Okay. ESG funds are those funds. Asset allocation includes shares and bonds of companies that are evaluated based on, and of course, they will make investment in those companies which will protect the interest of environment, social, and governance factor. An organization is said to be ESG compliant if it meets all the criteria of environmental, social, and governance. And in this paper, that environmental, social, and governance standard has also been defined. Okay, so we'll look at those parameters. What are those parameters which have been utilized in order to understand that the company is meeting the environmental, social, and governance standards? So what are those criteria? So criteria in terms of environmental, okay, environment companies that put out carbon or sustainability reports, limit harmful pollutants and chemical, seek to lower greenhouse gas emission, and use renewable energy sources. You can understand this. Okay. Socially responsible companies that operate an ethical supply chain, support LGBTQ rights and encourages diversity, have policies to protect against sexual misconduct, and pay fair wages. It means those companies which are working in the social sector may also get benefit of these funds. Governance, companies that embrace diversity in their on their board. So it is trying to strengthen the corporate governance as well. It embraced corporate transparency, companies that employ a CEO independent of the board chair. So there is no mix of the CEO and the board. Okay, so these are the criteria that will be utilized in order to identify whether a company is suitable to get funds from the ESG funds. Okay, and these criteria have also been mentioned under that particular uh, ESG fund. Now, what are the proposals that have been made by SEBI? So this was coming to discussion in 2017, and uh, you know it was said that 80% of the investment from these funds will be done in the themes for which it has been created. For example, it is ESG, so 80% of these funds will be used for making investment in those companies which will protect the interest of environment, sustainability, and governance. Okay, now it has specified that at least 80% of their assets in securities following the sustainable theme. Rest 20% assets should not be in stark contrast with the ESG philosophy. Means what? That it should that rest 20%, 80% should go to the ESG companies, but then other funds should also be go in those kind of companies which are not directly contrasting that fund. For example, these funds, okay, ESG funds should not be utilized, let's say in case of coal, should not be used, uh, this fund should not be used for creating thermal power plant, because thermal power plant is completely contrary to the philosophy of the ESG. It talks about the environment and sustainability, whereas a thermal power plant is not protecting the interest of environment and sustainability. So therefore, it should not be done. Okay, so it should be the rest 20% should also be invested in those companies which are matching the philosophy of the ESG fund. EMC, the asset management company. So asset management company which manages the mutual fund. What is asset management company? Which manages the mutual fund. Okay. For example, SDFC. There is a SDFC AMC. So SDFC asset management company. There is a SDFC bank, but then there is a SDFC AMC. That is a separate wing of HDFC. So that is asset management company. Every bank in India has now asset management component or asset management subsidiary company. All right. So the asset management companies should disclose nature and extent of ESG related. Okay. This will of course help the investor to judge whether the funds meet their requirement. ESG funds should only invest in companies which have filed business responsibility and sustainability reports. That is also one of the criteria that has been mentioned, that these funds or only those companies will be liable to get funds from the ESG funds which are filing the business report and business responsibility and sustainability report from the October 1, 2021. These are the proposals that are being made by SEBI with respect to ESG funds. Okay. Across the when it comes to ESG, I already told you the future belongs to ESG. Future belongs to the environment technology company. So therefore, ESG fund will greatly be giving return to the AMCs as well as the retail investors. So there is a huge scope for environment, sustainability, and governance fund. Okay. And if you look at the current status, So continuously, when there is a special emphasis on adopting sustainable growth, so the trend is towards ESG investing. Today it has surpassed 35 trillion dollar. Okay, that's a huge amount. Of course, the momentum will continue, and in next few years, especially in the next 5 years, you will see a third of global assets will be under the management of ESG. And of course, it will give you a high return. As I said, that the technology companies gives you high return, and green technology will definitely give you high return than any other companies. Look at Tesla. It is, of course, it is an electric vehicle company. Now it is giving more return than the size of these companies has increased uh, rapidly. Okay, the total size of the Tesla is higher than all the auto companies in US. Now just try to just understand, it is a 10 years old company, and maybe 12 to 12 13 years, and its market is way above than all rest of the companies in rest of auto companies in US. So therefore the future belongs to green technology, so therefore future belongs to the ESG funds. If you look at India, by the end of September 2021, 8 ESG thematic equity schemes were in operations with the investment of 12,000, or with the size of 12,085 crore. Okay, but the problem is about the regulation, because the regulation is, of course, at a nascent stage. Now the SBI will have to become active uh, uh, in order to reduce the ambiguity in this space, in order to increase more transparency, operation more fluid and more dynamic. And this is how the SEBI can, with the disclosure policy, the SEBI can further accelerate the investment towards the ESG fund in the country and availability of fund for the green technology in the country. So this is about the ESG fund. All right. If anybody has a question, please raise your question. If you are not able to understand any part of the discussion, please raise your question. And if you have understood, please say yes. If everyone has understood this concept, please say yes. If you have not understood, please say, please raise your doubt. All right. So we have
Hello,
discussed
sir.
today. Yes, please.
Sir, I want your email ID regarding to evaluation and everything.
Okay. My email ID, you just see it,
और सर कोई ऐसा मेंस का
Mandal.
क्वेश्चन भी दीजिए ना जो आज मतलब पूरा डिस्कशन हुआ है उस रिगार्डिंग.
There is a one, every Sunday we have answer writing session. So today also I've just taken answer writing session. Okay, so I have given questions also. Okay, so I'm already providing question, and I also discussed those questions. So why don't you attend that one also?
या
So
ओके
who is
फाइन सर, एक्चुअली आज मैं नहीं थी उस क्लास में, बट ठीक है मैं उसको ये कर लूंगी.
okay?
So
Yes, please, because
yeah,
you just watch the recorded video. Okay, that is available.
yeah sir, please share your email ID so I can share you my answer copy there.
Okay, it is hiralal.mandal cl@cleducate. Okay, at
सर सर
cleducate.org.
प्लीज टाइप कीजिए ना.
Everything capital, everything small. H is also small. All right.
सर
So,
कैन यू रिपीट, नेटवर्क चला गया था.
so I said it's there, na chat box. You just see in the chat box. Oh, I sent it to someone else. Okay, sorry. Let me do it for everyone. Okay, so I've already mentioned everything is small. Please check it. Okay, so we have discussed two topics so far. These are lengthy topics, so therefore we discuss it in detail. Now what we'll do, we'll take a short break. Okay, so we'll take a 10 minutes break. Then we will discuss other issues. Rest of the issues we'll try to go a bit faster. Okay, and then we'll discuss the rest of the issue. There are two quite 3 to 4 issues are there. We will discuss rest of the issues after break. Okay, so at this there is a 7:35, so we'll meet at 7:45 to discuss the rest of the issues. All right, is it okay to everyone? So let's take a break of 10 minutes and then we'll start at 7:45. Welcome back to everyone. Now let us discuss about the rest of the issue. So one of the issue, and this is a small issue, that is about the Khasi inheritance of property bill. So there is a one bill that is being introduced, though. So that's why this has come into. Sorry for that. Now, the Khasi inheritance of property bill 2021. Okay. Now, this has come into discussion lastly because a district autonomous council in Meghalaya, that council has recently announced that it would introduce the Khasi inheritance of property bill 2021. The bill has brought into the focus the practice of matrilineal in Meghalaya. So now this is an autonomous council, and this autonomous council is going to introduce a bill, and that is something which will be the focus of this this bill. Now, what are the generally practices that is being adopted by the matrilineal? Matrilineal means what? The lineage and descents that are traced through the mother's clan. If you look at India, you see that in the mainstream there is a lineage and descents which we found that is through the father's clan. Okay, but if you look at the tribes, and similarly with the Khasi, also the Khasi tribes also, you see they have the lineage and trace that you can find out from the mother's claim. Similarly, when it comes to the surname, okay, when it comes to the surname, they also takes the mother's surname. Okay, whereas in the main part of the country, you will see the children adopts the father's surname, whereas in terms of Khasi or in terms of most of the tribes, they takes the mother's surname. And also the practice is that the husband moves into wife's house, contrary to us or contrary to the mainstream. The youngest daughter of the family, that is known as Khatu, is has the responsibility, or has ancestral property rights. Khatu becomes the custodian of the land and assumes all responsibility associated with the land. So they becomes the main. Okay, so that is how their lineage or descent goes on. Now, Khadu cannot sell the property. Here comes to where you see the role of male. So Khadu, that is the youngest daughter of the family, cannot sell the property on its own. If it has to sell the property, it requires mother's brother. Okay, means maternal uncle's permission. Only then she can she can sell it to someone. Okay, when it comes to the property also, the same kind of things are applied. However, when it comes to the self-acquired property, that can be equally distributed equally amongst siblings. So here, when it comes to if a couple doesn't have any daughter, in that case, the wife's elder sister, the money or the property will go to the wife's elder sister. And if that is also not there, in that case, the clan usually takes over the property. Okay, the society takes over the property. So that is the trend that you will see in Meghalaya, or this is a kind of practice that you see generally in in tribals. Now the question arises that whether the matrilineal really empowers the women. Okay, if you look at what we have talked about the matrilineal and the kind of practices and customs that are generally found among the tribes, so it means that the women's situation might be a better situation from the discussion that we can see. But In reality, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't mean that, or it doesn't translate empowering the women there. Okay. Now, here we need to understand the matrilineal is not to be confused with the matriarchal. Matriarchal means the matriarchal society, the mother is the head of the family. Whereas when it comes to the matrilineal, it is the descendancy, or it is the clan that you can find out from, they inherit from mothers. It doesn't mean that the women is the head of the family. It doesn't mean like this one. Okay. So that's why if it is not head, so or women is not head of the family, it means it rarely empowers women. Of course, the custodian is given. Okay, the custodian is of course vested in Khadu, which is the youngest daughter, but then the youngest daughter requires the permission of the male member. Okay, so there is a one custodian. So therefore, it is not that she can take a decision on its own. So that is the limitations that you can see. Okay, and of course, the custodianship comes with the responsibility to care for aged parents, unmarried or destitute siblings, and other clan members. So it's not that responsibility is given. Apart from the responsibility, there is apart from the power, the responsibility is also given to them. As I said, the custodian cannot buy or sell the land without taking permission from the maternal uncle. So therefore, the role of the male member comes into being. Women may have freedom of mobility and easier access to education, but they are not the decision. Okay, they are not the decision maker. Whether when it comes to the property, they don't take the decision. So the matrilineal does not translate into the decision making done by the women member of the society, women member of the family. Okay, largely it is because of the fact that since independence, if you look at, they are not in a power of position, they are not in a politics, they are not heading the institution, neither they are in the bureaucracy. As a result of that, there is no representation of women, and therefore their power has continuously gone down when it comes to taking decision in the family. The Dorbar song, which is traditional, you need to remember this one. This might be asked in the examination. Okay, sometimes the terms are often asked. So since this term has been come into discussion, so you must remember that there is a term that is Dorbar song, and that is related to the governing body of Khasi villages. Okay, so they dever. It means that women are not allowed to participate in the election. So that their traditional Khasi village governing bodies, okay, they are not allowed to contest elections. So largely that is because that is the reason why they don't have participation in politics. They are not found in the position of power, and therefore in reality they are not in a situation to take decision. Okay, this is what you can see the bill is talking about. So bill basically talks about what they are trying to change this situation, and also at the same time trying to improve the parental property. Okay, the better distribution of parental property. So the first thing, it calls for equitable distribution of parental property among both male and female member of the society. It also allows the parent to decide that whom they want to whom they want to give their will. So the parents now, it's a contrary to the matrilineal society where the right is automatically comes into the hand of the female member. Okay, here it says the parents can decide who will inherit their property and in what proportion. So it prevents siblings from getting parental property if they marry. There's one thing that the problem of the tribal community, you will see the tribal community, there is, if they join the mainstream society, most of the time they married to someone else in this. Since these tribal communities, the population of these tribal communities are continuously decreasing, the rate of growth is very low. As a result, what will happen, the problem you can see when the tribal communities will completely lost. So therefore what it suggests that if a tribal community or if a tribal member, if it marries do marriage to someone else and do accept the customs of spouses, in that case they will not be allowed to get the parental property. That is what it is trying to it is mentioned. The say Another provision is that if it implemented, so it would modify, of course, the customary practices of inheritance of the matrilineal Khasi tribes. Okay, so these are the key provisions of the bill. And but then there is a problem when it comes to the passing of the bill. Why? Because the first thing is about the restrictions, because it is an autonomous council. Okay, so tribal have their autonomous council. They can set up their autonomous council. This has been set up. Okay, and this has been set up under part under sixth schedule of the constitution. Under the sixth schedule of the constitution, you see there is a mention of autonomous council. Okay, in Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. So in these four districts, there is an autonomous council that has been created. These autonomous councils are created in order to give more space to the tribal community in the country. So they have given more power. But when it comes to passing a bill or legislating a bill, it is not their prerogative. It is the prerogative of the assembly. It is the assembly which can pass the bill with respect to. So first limitation is that the it cannot pass a legislation. Okay, so that is one. The second is, of course, it is yet to be introduced. Of course, the paragraph 12A of the sixth schedule gives the final right of passing the law to the state legislature. In that circumstances, it has some limitations. Okay, and of course, some groups have been campaigning for such a legislation because they do not agree with the provisions of the bill. 70% of the Khasi families are property-less. Now, this is an important question. Now, if they are the property-less, in that case, when the rights will be given. Okay? So that is something. These are the challenges that you can see. Here we need to understand sixth schedule of the Constitution. Okay, so the question can be asked about the sixth schedule of the Constitution. So sixth schedule of the Constitution offers more democratic space to the tribal communities. So therefore, the autonomous councils have been created for the various tribal communities in various part of the country, and such autonomous council have been created in Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, and Meghalaya. Okay, so this is what you can see with sixth schedule of the Constitution. Many times the question has been asked from the sixth schedule of the Constitution. So this is what the bill is. It's a very small topic. This is progress. This is a topic which are still in the progress. But remember, there are few things. Customary practices, that is one thing. There are another thing that is about the Khasi tribes. You need to understand the Khasi tribes are found in which part of the country. There are three main tribes in Meghalaya: Garo, Khasi, Jaintia. You need to understand there is also three hills, and these are known as Garo, Khasi, Jaintia hills. So you need to understand these things related to this bill. So the question can be asked with respect to the prelims examination about these related topics. These related topics from this discussion. All right. So this is a rather easy topic. Now next is the G20 summit. Now this is again information based. Right now we are not discussing, because the more number of articles will come when it will talk about the various issues that have been discussed. So what we will do under this this discussion, we'll just go through the summit. We'll talk about what are the countries which are participating in G20 summit and what are the issues that have been discussed so far. Okay, later on we will keep developing and we'll keep tracking what has happened in G20 summit and what are the outcome of the G summit. So there will be analysis on the various issues that have been discussed in G summit. So first, I'm discussing today that what are the things that have been discussed in G summit. Remember, this is in the news. This is the news that will be progress, and there will be some other related articles related to the G20 that will come. We'll discuss about this one also in the next next few weeks. Okay, so keep tracking. We will keep tracking the issue related to this one. Now let us discuss about what has been discussed in G20 summit. G20, okay. G20 means there are top 20 countries, okay. There are top 20 countries in the world. They are meeting at every, they are meeting every year, okay. And now it is considered as G20 is considered as the most significant economic platform where the global issues are discussed, okay. So therefore, in that context, it has a huge significance. If you look at the size and of course the membership, you will understand that G20 represents almost almost 80% of the world GDP, 75% of the global trade, and 60% of the population of the planet. So this is the most important, you can understand this is the most important economic summit that that are organized every year, okay. It is an international forum that brings together world's 20 leading industrialized and emerging economies, okay. And India is also among the founding member of G20. Look at the countries here: Canada, Canada, United States, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, okay, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, India, Indonesia, Australia, Japan, South Korea, South Africa, and there is a EU. Okay, apart from that, there is a EU, okay, European Union. So together, these are 20 members of the G20. Okay, keep tracking the members of the G20. Sometimes question can be asked from that part also. Now, yes, these are the permanent. Okay, these are permanent. There is no permanent or semi-permanent kind of difference created. Okay, so it is as of now these are the permanent members of the G20. Others can also be invited, but these are 20 permanent members. Okay, the forum has met every year since 1999, and in okay, it is yearly. It has been announced a yearly summit in broadly in the context of the global financial crisis that occurred in 2018 2008-9. So as a response and more as a response to the global financial crisis and looking for a more coordinated action, the GFC or G20 has acquired a huge significance. Okay, there is also ministerial meetings apart from the head of the state. They also meet at the G20 summit. There are ministerial meetings. There are Sherpa meetings. So there are Sherpas appointed for G20. Okay, so there are ministerial meetings. There are Sherpa meetings that also goes on at the event. Okay, so this is brief information about the G20, how the G20 works. So basically, G20, it doesn't have a permanent secretariat, as you can see. When it comes to the WTO, when it comes to the United Nations, and so on, they have a permanent secretariat, but the G20 doesn't have permanent secretariat. Rather, it works like, the agenda and the activities are established by the rotating presidencies. Okay, so every country gets the presidency. India will also get the presidency of G20 in 2023. So in 2023, G20 will be organized in India. Okay, so India will be hosting country in 2023. So its agendas and activities are established by the rotating presidency. So there is a troika. So there is a one which is the current current presidency. There is an outgoing presidency, and there is a successor presidency. So these troika decides the the issues that need to be discussed in the G20. Okay, so the troika countries right now includes what? Saudi Arabia, Italy, and Indonesia. So next year it will be organized in Indonesia. Okay. So next year it would be Indonesia, India in 2023, India, Indonesia, and other countries. Okay. So at present, you see Saudi Arabia, because last time it was organized at Saudi Arabia. It has been rightly organized in Rome, Italy, and the next is Indonesia. Remember this point. Why? Because sometimes the question can be asked not only about that G20 has been organized in which country or which city, but apart from that, it was organized last year. It was organized, and the next year, well, where will it be organized? So, question can be asked like this one also. So, what are the topics that have been discussed? Okay, so of course, the theme of but this year G20 was people, planet, and prosperity. Okay, and of course, the agenda includes all the issues which the global community is facing, including the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, tax agreement, and step to address concerns regarding global economic growth and stability. Okay, so there are a lot of issues that have been discussed. For example, issues have been discussed with related to health. There was issues with related to climate change, global finance, global economy, and development aids. These are the major topics that have been discussed. And what are the specific things that have been discussed as part of the health is that, to mitigate the pandemic, the focus, of course, was on the vaccine production and distribution, and therefore the first focus of the G20 is to reduce its impact or mitigate the impact of pandemic on the various countries. The members assures the support to WTO's target of inoculating 40% or more of the global population against COVID-19 by the year 2021, and at least 70% by the mid 2022. Supply of vaccine has been also boosted up, and India is definitely going to play a vital role when it comes to the supply of vaccine. Okay, so that has already been discussed. Apart from the climate change issue, the group leaders recommitted their nations to providing $100 billion a year towards adaptation, mitigation, and green technologies. Okay, in order to meet the needs of the developing countries, because the developing countries needs to transfer. When so far the developing countries, they have less resources, though therefore they are based on, there are thermal power based operations. Okay, power plant that is in the developing countries, largely because of the cost. Now if they have to transit from thermal power plant to the green technologies, so this transitions requires some cost. So the developed countries they have committed that they will provide enough resources to the developing countries so that their transition is happened in the developing countries. Okay, so they have also acknowledged the use of carbon pricing mechanism. I've already discussed about these topics in one of the previous lectures, so please go to the previous lecture and just try to understand the issue related to carbon pricing mechanism. Okay, so that has all these are the issues that have been discussed. When it comes to the global finance, they have agreed to impose multinationals with a minimum 15% tax to create a more stable and fairer international taxation system. So there has been one taxation system which has been created, global global minimum alternate tax. Okay, so global minimum alternate tax has been introduced. So global every corporate across the globe, I've already discussed about this issue as well in the previous chapter. So global minimum alternate tax has been introduced to the tune of 15%. It means what? Every company will have to share 15% of its profit from the government. The government can be the government can be that government where the benefit is being made by the companies, or if it is not happening, then the local government can also impose the rest of the amount, or if the unpaid amount of unpaid amount of tax to these companies. So therefore, so global minimum alternate tax has been introduced in and has been discussed in G20, and in fact OECD country. Okay, so these countries which have a support of 136 countries, they and represents 90% of the global GDP. They are likely to enter into the force of these particular agreement. They have signed the agreement, so they will ratify it, and this global minimum alternate tax, every company will have to pay by the year 2023. Okay. When it comes to the global economy, there are a lot of issues that they have discussed. Of course, the inflation is increasing largely because every country has followed the the quantitative easing policy, and as a result, the more money has come into the market, and as a result, inflation can be seen across the world. Energy prices is also continuously increasing, largely because of supply side constant, also because of a huge surge in the demand after the pandemic, and in the context of supply chain bottlenecks. So these are the things that have been discussed, which the supply chain got affected during the COVID related disruptions. So they have discussed about the improvement of the supply chain bottlenecks. Of course, the leaders, they set a new target of channelizing $100 billion towards poorest nations, coming from $6 billion pot made available by the IMF. Okay, so developmental, they have agreed to provide developmental aid to the poorest nations, especially to deal with the with various developmental issues. So these are the things that have been discussed in G20. Now remember, these are the issues that have been discussed, and all these issues, every country has different sort of opinion, whether it is about the global GMAT, whether it is about the global economy, developmental aid, or climate finance, or climate change, health. So every country has a different sort of perspectives. For example, in health, India is continuously demanding for waiver of vaccine, uh, vaccine production, so as to boost the vaccine production and distribution across the world. But whereas the other countries, for example, Europe, has a different sort of perspective. It is not interested in providing waiver to the vaccine production, and therefore different sort of interest that you see is that is going to be organized in this month in Geneva. Okay. Similarly, when you see the climate change, when it comes to the providing $100 billion towards adaptation, mitigation, and green technologies, the countries are not able to meet this target. And target was set up in Paris Climate Change Agreement, but still it has not yet implemented, because the developed countries want the developing countries to share that kind of responsibility, whereas developing countries are are shying away from making such investment, because they themselves have to have a cost of transitioning from one carbon based economy to low carbon based economy. So you can see the differences in every context. Okay, when it comes to the global finance also, not every country is agreed to global GMAT, because it is going to benefit, of course, the US, but what about the developing countries, which are going to lose huge amount of money in such process? So what do you see, that there are huge problems, there are challenges in these issues. In every issues there have been a lot of discussion. Okay, so when it comes to the particular issue, we'll talk about the particular issue as I said, these are all hot topics, and you can expect a question from any topic in the mains examination. So we'll keep tracking on these news. We'll keep discussing these issues in future future discussion. right? Topic that we have discussed. I hope you don't have issue with uh, this issue. All right. Is it okay to everyone? Okay. Now let us discuss about the similar topic, and there is one topic that is removal of Mauritius from the grey list. Here we need to understand about the grey list. What is grey list? Okay. We also need to discuss about FATF and how this removal will impact India. Okay, so removal of Mauritius from grey list of FATF and its impact on India. So we'll discuss about what is this, how it is related to to India, how it will affect our country. Okay, now let us try to understand. So first thing first, FATF. Okay. So what is this? The Financial Action Task Force has removed Mauritius from its grey list countries, which may indirectly lead to higher investment to India. Okay. If I need to say in one statement, I can say that if Mauritius has been removed from the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force, it will have impact on India in terms of rising investment to India. What does it mean? It means that Mauritius is one of the main source to make investment in India. You know, Mauritius is among the largest FDI contributor to the country. This is something you will surprised to know that the Mauritius is the largest contributor of FDI in India. Now, the question is how the Mauritius, is such a small country like Mauritius can make a lot of investment in India. It is largely because Mauritius is a tax haven country. Tax haven countries are those countries which either have very less tax rate, okay, they have a less tax rate or 0% tax rate on the profits of the company. So therefore, so there is a let's say there is a company in Mauritius, so the company earns the profit, it has to pay very less taxes against those earned. All right. Now what happens that let's say there is a Google, okay, Google is a company in US. If the Google makes investment directly into India, okay, in that case it will establish its subsidiary company. It will have to make what it will have to make whenever it earns the profit, it will have to whatever the profit it gains, it will have to give it to, as some percentage of it, it will have to give it to the country. So there is a capital gains tax. When the capital enters into your territory and if it gains something, it will have to pay capital gains tax. All right. Now, what happens that since tax rate is very low in US, so capital gains tax is very low. Let's say in India, capital gains tax is 18%, whereas in Mauritius, capital gains tax is, let's say, 5%, or as I said, less or zero. Okay, so let's say capital gains tax is 2% here. Now, the company, Google will set up its subsidiary here, and this subsidiary will make investment in India. Since India and Mauritius has a double tax avoidance agreement, DTAA, we have a double tax avoidance agreement. So the company does what? The company makes profit if the capital gains tax, okay, the company is making capital gains, okay. Now the company has to make payment at only one place. Let's say there is a 18% tax in India and 5% tax rate in Mauritius. So the company would definitely want to pay at one place because there is a double tax avoidance agreement. So you cannot impose tax at both the places. The tax will be collected at one place and then it will be distributed among the countries as per the agreement. Okay. Now let's say the company, okay, Google has made profit of 100 crore rupees. Now if it pays money, okay, capital gains tax in India, it will have to pay 18 crore rupees to the government of India. But if it pays to the Mauritius government, it will have to pay only 5 crore rupees as a tax. It will be able to save 13 crore rupees as a tax. Now, this is what happens that the tax haven countries. In this process, what happens, the country India also gets suffered and US also gets suffered, because US, the company says, look, I have not made profit in your country, so therefore I will not pay even a single pound, a single dollar from you, because the profit has been generated in different countries. Okay, now Income Tax Act of every country is saying that tax can be imposed on only those entities which are making profit, which have their physical location in the country. So therefore tax can be imposed on only that company. So here in this case, the company is located in India, it has generated profit in India, so therefore it will not share with the US. This is the reason why global minimum alternate tax have been ratified, has been agreed upon by the various 136 countries. All right, now this is what happens. Okay, now this is the reason that a lot of time the companies are able to do tax evasion. Okay, this and that's why the Financial Action Task Force has said it has brought Mauritius into the gray list. Now, what is gray list and gray list? So there are two lists. Financial Action Task Force is is an organization which are engaged in controlling the terror financing, controlling the money which is used for money laundering. Okay, so these are the important functions of the Financial Task Force. We'll discuss about it in a few minutes. So Financial Action Task Force has a two types of list. One is a blacklist and second is a gray list. If a country is in blacklist, it means those kind of countries which are promoting the terrorist activities, which are non-cooperative countries, they are brought under the blacklist. It means what? That the countries are not able to do finance, or the countries will not be able to do finance with the other countries. So fund will be chalked in these countries. So that is that those countries are brought under the blacklist, especially those countries which support the terror funding and money laundering activities are brought under the blacklist. Whereas the gray list is less harsh. Okay, and the countries which are considered safe haven, okay, which are considered safe haven, okay, they are not they're not proved, but then there is a they are considered safe haven for supporting terror funding or money laundering activities. Okay, so these countries are put under the gray list. Now what happens, the Mauritius is also considered as as a safe haven for money laundering. Why? Because in many cases the money goes from India, so the black money from India goes to Mauritius, they set up their companies there, and from that part they routed their fund to India. So that is known as that is rooted into the country. So this is how the funding happens. So what happens, that money laundering, so Mauritius is considered as a safe haven for money laundering. So this is the reason why the Mauritius has been put under the gray list, but now it has been it has been removed from the gray list. Means what? It is safe to make investment from the Mauritius to other countries. Okay, now what will happen as a result? So first of all, let me explain to you about Financial Action Task Force, because this is an important organization, and money laundering is a topic that is mentioned in your syllabus as part of the internal security. Of course, it is important for the economic perspective as well. So therefore, you need to understand about the FATF, because it is engaged in controlling the money laundering across the border. So FATF, it is a global terror financing watchdog. It is headquartered in Paris. It was set up in 1989 by the G7 countries. I hope you know the G7 countries. So the developed countries. Okay, there is a grouping of developed countries. Okay, these grouping comprises US, Canada, UK, Germany, France, Japan, okay, US, Canada, UK, Germany, France, and Japan. Okay, so these are the countries. Uh, Italy. Apart from that, there is one, Italy. Okay, so these are the 7 countries that these 7 countries comprises the G7. Okay, so these are all developed economies. So basically, it was set up by the G7 countries in 1989. The objective was to the control terror, global terror financing. Okay, it acts as an international watchdog on issue of money laundering and financing of terrorism. It curtailed financing of UN designated terrorist group. So if UN is announcing a group as a terrorist group, so all the funding related to these groups will be chopped by these agencies. It can limit the concerned countries from sourcing financial flows. Okay, so as you can see, the Pakistan was also in the gray list. So therefore, the financial flows in Pakistan was restricted by FATF. Currently, if you look at FATF has 39 members, which comprise 37 members jurisdiction and 2 regional organizations. India has become its full member in 2010. So this is brief information about FATF. Now, if you look at the status of Mauritius in FTA list, as I said, in February 2020, because of its weak system in counter money laundering and terror financing, Mauritius was put on the gray list. But now it has been removed. Okay, because Mauritius has strengthened its anti-money laundering and terror financing process. It has also addressed the issues related technical deficiencies to meet the commitment in FATF action plan. Okay, so therefore it has been informed that Mauritius is no longer subject to its increased monitoring process. Okay, now if it is not subject to increased monitoring process in Mauritius, then what happens? Let's say what happens, there are a lot of funds, FIIs create a lot of funds in these countries. Now, if the monitoring is not happened, huge monitoring doesn't happen, in that case, they will be able to get funds from this and they can make investment in Bombay Stock Exchange. They can make investment in India or so what will happen as a result of this? So India, you can see more inflows of FDI in the country or FIIs in the country. So foreign investment will increase through this route. Okay. Now the question is, why is Mauritius is preferred for routing foreign investment? Largely because as I said to you, India and Mauritius has a double tax avoidance agreement. So therefore, companies are setting up their subsidiaries in Mauritius so that they have to pay less capital gains tax. This is the reason they can save their taxes. This is the reason why the FDI is routed or FIIs, foreign investment, is routed through Mauritius. Whereas if it is done from US, they will have to pay capital gains tax to the country. Okay, so that is one reason. Of course, in Mauritius, because it is a tax haven country, and therefore regulatory system in Mauritius is very easy, is very weak. Okay, and this is the reason it is preferred. Now, what will be its impact on India? Once Mauritius is removed from the gray list, what will happen? So it will, of course, the Mauritius will again get the status of financial center, but at the same time, it will enable Indian non-banking other financial services companies to receive FDI from funds and vehicles incorporated in these countries. India can also expect less scrutiny by custodian banks on the beneficial ownership of the various FPI and FDI. Many offshore funds, they were not able to make investment in the country. Now they will be they will be able to make investment in India and also in African countries. So huge amount of investment can be expected coming from the Mauritius. So this is how it is going to affect India in the long process. So if it has been put out, if it has been kept out of the gray list, so it will be positive, it will have a positive impact in the financial system of the country. All right, so this is how we need to correlate the things. If anything happening in international world, now we are a globalized economy, so if anything happens in the international world, you need to look at its impact in India. Look at this year's question. The question has been asked about, if anything is done by the Federal Reserve of US, will it affect Indian economy? Yes, it will affect Indian economy. So you need to understand, because there is a one chapter that is known as external sector. So you need to understand, if anything happens in international world, how it is going to affect India. Let's say the oil price. If the oil prices gets increased, how it will affect our trade policies, how it will affect our current account deficit, how will it will impact inflation in the country. So things are related. We need to take into account what is happening, happening around the world, and how it is going to impact the country as well. Okay, in this in this discussion, we need to understand, if anything happens, because Mauritius is the source of financial a source of FDI and FPI in the country. So if anything happens when it comes to tax, or when it comes to the restriction in Mauritius, uh, when it comes to the flow of fund, in that case, it will have some impact on India. Okay, the question can be asked in mains examination or prelims examination related to this as well. All right, so this is what we have understood. Now we have discussed this issue. Anybody has a doubt with respect to this issue? If you don't have a doubt, please say, if you have understood everything, please say yes. If you have doubt, please raise your doubt. If you have a doubt, please raise your doubt. And if you have understood everything, then please say yes. I'm expecting everyone to participate. Yes, please. If you have understood, please say yes. Okay. 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 Now, what we have done, we have discussed these issues. Okay. Now, once we have discussed these issues, these are the some of the issues which are tough in the nature. So, which requires some sort of understanding. We discussed those issues, and there are some issues we could not discuss, but these are rather easy topic that And what you do, you have already attended the class. Now, what you can do, you go to the because this is saved, so you just go to the PPTs and please keep reading the materials. It will be more than sufficient for you. You will be able to understand everything. If you are not able to understand anything, please do let me know in the next class. Whenever we will start the class, you raise your question in the beginning of the class, so that we can discuss those issues as well. Okay, so this is what yes, everyone will get access to the PPT, Uttam. So everyone will get the access of this PPT. There's no worry about it. Okay, now so this is what we have discussed. Okay, now in the next issue we'll discuss, so we'll take some more issues, and then we'll discuss. I cannot this is a different platform, just one. It is not right for me to talk about the different platform. Okay, there are many current affairs notes that are available in the market. You just look at that. If the language is easy, you can comprehend every aspect of the things that is written. Are you able to understand the thing? Okay, don't go by the name, just go by the material. If you are able to understand the material, then it's okay with that. If you have if you're not able to understand, in that case, don't I would not suggest you to follow. Okay, so just look at it, read it once. You will, if you are able to understand, then it's okay. You can just mail it to Himanshu sir, okay, or you can contact to Himanshu sir, okay. So he will add you into the group, and you can definitely download that PPT. All right. So this is what you can. Jaswant Siv Sai, see, you cannot avoid reading newspaper. You cannot escape. You must read the Hindu. Okay, every day you need to understand you need to read. Okay, I would never say you need to escape the Hindu. Please don't do it. Okay, now what we do in when we discuss about the program and the things, what we do, we just try to simplify the issues. You must not, if you have not able to understand, then we simplify it, we go deeper into the issues, and we link it with the with the static portion of the syllabus. All right, this is what we do in our online discussion. But when it comes to reading, please do read a newspaper every day. Please do not escape from it. Absolutely, these are the topics that you can please raise. uh, these are all editorials because it is based on some topics. So these are the things that are taken from the newspaper, and we go deeper into this. So we discuss, sometimes we discuss only the editorial, sometimes we go deeper into the issue and discuss some things, something in length, as we done with the first issue. We went into the length of the topic, and then we discussed. So of course we can do, and I would always advise you to please read and come with the topic. We'll definitely discuss in the classroom as well. Got that point? Okay. So these are the things that we discuss. The rest of the issues we will discuss in the next class. All right. Thank you. Good night to everyone.